Good morning.
Morning.
How we doing?
Good. When you looked at the film of Colorado, obviously, as we talked about the other day, they've struggled, but what are some of the things that they've done well?
They got a good defensive front. A lot of veteran experience there. The middle linebacker, Perry's a really, really good player. Tough, hard-nosed, physical player, kind of the center point of what they do defensively. It's unique. They face three exactly different teams. You got to go play the option in game 2 against Air Force, and that's a totally kind of a game changer for you. They got a decent scheme from a run standpoint, and the RPO's off of it. I think they just got to get settled at the quarterback spot, because in the Minnesota game they played all three. So they played Lewis and Shroud and McNown. So I think if they can get the quarterback position straightened out, it's a good scheme, both offensively and defensively.
So do you prepare for all three quarterbacks? Or?
You have to, because they played all three, and they played all three in the last game. So that's kind of just part of the process. Lewis is a little bit more of a runner of the three of them. So we just have to be aware. I think he may get multiple quarterbacks in the game. We got to be aware of who's in the game, and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and how is the play calling does it change depending on who the quarterback is.
Have they been doing different kind of play calling or game plan stuff?
You couldn't tell. McNown went in for the last 4 minutes of the game. Young kid, accurate, lefty. Looks like he's got a pretty good grasp of what they're doing offensively. But it was late. Minnesota was they was just running the clock out. So, but that's what you got to be aware of. Kind of what you think. We know out of the three that Lewis is more of the runner out of the three. So,
what have you seen out of your cornerbacks so far through 3 games?
I think they've competed really well out there. They're tall and long. I think they've done a nice job of matching up with wideouts when we were in man coverage. We don't always play man every snap. But I think they're doing a good job, especially in press, because they're tall and long and they can use their length as an advantage for them. I think they're continuing to grow. We're young from an experience standpoint there, because both Hump and Devin have played for us, but they haven't been starters for us, so they're playing a lot. And then Aziz is every week just keep getting better. Transferred in from Wyoming, and as the longer he gets, the more experience he gets in our system. And he's bouncing from corner to nickel and then back to corner, so getting some valuable reps in there. Obviously, Jalen Davies has played a little bit. He had a pick in the Alabama State game. That was good for him to get that. And Isaiah Newcomb's also contributing out there.
How have you seen Keegan kind of embrace his job at running back this year?
Yeah, I think the one thing about Keegan going through last spring is you can see him get better in every phase of his what he's doing. I think he's done a really good job in pass pro, in the protection part of things. We always knew he was a weapon coming out of the backfield, but we're not always free release in the back. Sometimes you have to keep the back end in protection if people are going to blitz in. I think he's done a good job from that standpoint. He's been really close on a couple runs to really breaking some big ones for us. So we're excited for him to continue to grow that way. But he's got a tremendous work ethic and has done a really nice job kind of fitting in as that guy behind Zach, so that our game or our play calling doesn't drop off when Keegan's in the game compared to when Zach's in the game. Go ahead.
When we're watching the cornerbacks and giving up like a third down, is that knowledge of down and distance? Is that part of?
That's part of what's going on, and then the play call. I think in one of those situations that happened the other day, we called for press, but the corner wasn't in press. So, just really they got to understand why we called press. It was a third and long situation, third and medium situation. We don't want to be 10 yards off on third and medium. We want to be up a little bit closer to our work. So, but that's a process that you learn once you start playing games.
And is part of that just experience too?
For all those guys. That's the one thing with them. I think they're doing a really good job there, and they're gaining valuable experiences along the way. But they haven't played a ton of snaps. Now that we've got 3 games under our belt, you can see them just playing with a little bit more confidence and trusting their techniques and understanding. Really then it starts to get into situational awareness and understanding where they fit in terms of what we're doing and what the play call is.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions about Jake. When you found out that Jake might come here, what jumped off on film about him to you first?
Well, we knew of them. I know Coach Cutcliffe really well. So when Coach Cutcliffe left Duke, we just talked to him about his players, and he gave me a great recommendation about Jake as a player. And then when you watch the tape, he was the leading receiver in the ACC. On a team that really didn't have a rushing attack. And I think when people played Duke, You knew they were going to throw the ball, and you knew they were going to throw the ball to Bobo, and he still caught it. So his ability to make contested catches was really impressive. He played a Thursday night game against Louisville, where even the announcers and everybody said, this is going to Bobo, and it went to Bobo, and he still was making catches. So, you had a kid that can win in one-on-one situations. But then when you met him as a person and understand his mindset, his work ethic, and what he wants to get accomplished, it was just everything we learned after we saw the film, and we fell in love with him when we watched the film. But then when you meet him as a person, just what his mindset is, his toughness, what he brings from a work ethic standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, I think has been outstanding. So we're really excited to have Jake here.
I'm sure you've coached a lot of players that come from football backgrounds like he does.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference that you find in those players? I mean, obviously his dad was an SEC quarterback. He's been a long-time coordinator.
His dad, that's not his dad. His dad was a linebacker at Dartmouth College.
He's a linebacker. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So his dad and mom. His mom was an outstanding hockey player at Dartmouth. So they both went to Dartmouth together. So he comes from an athletic football family, and I think he grew up around sports, and I think that's a real big deal for him. I think he's one of those kids that just went from one season to the next season to the next season. So he's got a really athletic mind in terms of processing things and how it works. And he's got a burning passion and desire to be great. And I think that's the one thing that you notice every day with him is that's what he's trying to do.
Is the learning curve different for guys that come from that background?
It could be. Some guys pick things up instantly. Other guys, they have to work at it a little bit. I think every kid's it's done on an individual basis, but Jake picked things up really quickly here. And our tight end coach, Jeff Ferris, came from Duke, so I think he did a decent job of being able to help bridge that gap. Because most of the time, people are doing the same things, but at Duke they called it this, at UCLA we call it that. So I'm sure.
We've heard of recruiting pipelines, different high schools to colleges. You almost have a pipeline from Duke now. Is it possible in the transfer portal era to have a pipeline from one college to another?
I think we got 2 from Duke this year. I think our relationship with Coach Cutcliffe helped. Because I think both Gary and Jake's respect for Coach Cut was a big deal, and then their respect for Coach Ferris was kind of part of it. But I don't know, things changed so quickly with the transfer deal. I'm not sure, and I know Mike's doing a really good job at Duke right now. I think they're undefeated also. So maybe there's not a lot of guys that are going to be leaving from there. I think Mike's got a good job, got them going in that direction. So.
You got Britton too, so that's 3.
Yeah, that's 3. That's actually, and that was again because of our relationship with Coach Cutcliffe. We don't take anybody unless we talk to the head coach of the other team and kind of get their recommendation and doing our background work. And I've known Coach Cut for a long time, so I have great respect for him. So that certainly helped. Yeah.
Does it help the academic fit too for Duke?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you look at our transfers, we have Harvard, Michigan, Duke. We've got a Penn, we got a kid from Penn, we got a kid from Fordham. There are some academics. That's the first thing we look at when a kid goes into the portal is, will he be an admittable student? Because it's wasting the kid's time and our time if we go try to recruit a kid that we're not going to be able to get into school. So, there's a reason that our transfers are coming from some of these really high-profile academic schools, similar to what we have here. So.
With classes getting started, do you years kind of go through an adjustment with that starting, or it goes pretty smoothly?
Yeah, I think because their day changes, but what we've always done is our training sessions don't change. So they're done at 11 and they go off to academics. So we're not going to change. I think at some schools, maybe in the quarter system, now that school starts, they're going to practice at a different time. They're going to meet at a different time. We're not, because we've been doing this the whole time. So they've been done every day at 11, and then they would go from 11 to 5 to academics. So now instead of going from 11 to 5, where they can get treatment and hang out and be a summertime college student, that just changes. The academic part take part of that. So our schedule doesn't change, and our demands on them doesn't change.
With Martin now out, how does that affect the rotation with the defensive line?
What was it? I missed the first part.
With Martin now out, how does that affect the rotation with the defensive line?
Yeah, we're just, you're probably going to see a little bit more Dovey, a little bit more Gary, a little bit more Jacob. There's one guy down there, and you've got to be able to. There's one guy down there, and you just got to be able to, to step up. But those guys have all played. We rotated 6 defensive linemen in our first 3 games, so now we'll be rotating 5 defensive linemen in our first, in this game. So
Gary's back.
We'll see today what he can do.
With Hayden and Quentin, how close are they to being able to make an impact on the field?
Yeah, Q's doing a really good job. We'll see where he is, and we also have some flexibility with our outside guys. So we feel real confident moving forward at the defensive line position.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.